I'm Brown. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new sort of video. My posture is bad as always, but I'm trying to frame so that you can see me but also see what I'm doing. I wanted to share this sort of like story time video, but I also for some reason just feel weird about sitting and talking about it, not doing anything. So I'm also going to be working on my most recent crochet project, and I will show you this new stitch I learned so that if you don't care about this story at all and all you want to do is crochet, you can learn a new stitch. So I will insert a clip of that here as I start talking, and then I'm just gonna chill and work on this. As some of you may know, I don't make videos around my disability and chronic illness stuff solely terribly often. So if you have not seen any of those videos before and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I don't blame you. But that is actually how I started this channel. I had every intention of doing just sort of whatever I felt like, but that my first video was about just my chronic illness history and stuff. But I have been having some medical stuff happening recently that actually has nothing to do with that. So even though it's not like disability advocacy and that kind of stuff, I just thought I would share because I still find, I don't know, I just, as you can tell, I don't really know. I feel like it could be helpful. I don't like the idea of just sharing a story to complain about it, but I think it's important that people feel validated in their feelings, and I find that even though I am very familiar with going to doctor's offices and dealing with all different kinds of doctors and just like medical stuff in general, that I still sort of feel that like frozenness sometimes, and things don't go great. And so I sort of just want to share that even when you're an adult and even when you go in thinking you know what you're doing and stuff, that like those feelings still happen, and if you feel that way, you're not alone. So I will try not to make it too like long or complainy or whatever, but because things are doing better now. So it was actually 2 weeks ago today, it's Friday. I can't pronounce it anyway, but I had my gallbladder removed. I very sort of quickly had gallstones, and the issues escalated kind of fast, and so I ended up having surgery pretty quickly. The surgery itself went great. I'm healing really well. All that is nice, which I'll talk about at the end, but I just kind of wanted to go through the process. So a little over a month ago now, I started having like weird abdominal pain, and I say weird because if you've seen my other videos, you know that I have IBS and GERD. So I'm familiar with like stomach pain, and this was new and different. So I kind of just was like, okay, if I'm going to pay attention to what day I notice this, so if it gets worse, I know like when to tell a doctor. And so over about 2 weeks, it became a little more constant. The pain wasn't horrible, but I was pretty uncomfortable, and it was kind of weird. And so I ended up telling my partner about it and was like, I'm going to go to the doctor. So I just went to a walk-in clinic before work one day, and she was like, yeah, that pain is mostly like right where your gallbladder is. Let's do an ultrasound. I go and get an ultrasound, and if you've ever had an ultrasound of anything, it's the same with like any sort of testing you get done. The tech doesn't tell you what they see. They just do it, and then your doctor tells you. So I'm laying in this room super early in the morning listening to Christian rock playing while I lay there for like a good half hour, 45 minutes, getting this done, which I was actually really happy because when I first got diagnosed with IBS when I was in high school, I went through every kind of testing you can imagine. I had my gallbladder sounded back then, but it was super awkward because I wore a uniform to school, and so I had to go to the ultrasound like wing after school one day, which like is in the maternity section. So all of these ladies were like glaring at me because they thought I was like a 17-year-old Catholic schoolgirl that was pregnant, so that was super like awkward. But I remembered that tech, like, she took the ultrasound thing and like dug it into my stomach, and she was like pressing so hard and holding it there for like counts of 30. And I remembered like right before this recent ultrasound how painful that was, and I was like, but now my gallbladder actually hurts. And so I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be awful. So I don't know if that tech just didn't know what she was doing, but this was not that bad. Like, it was a little sore when he got like right on the spot, but pain wise it wasn't terrible. It was a little uncomfortable, and he got some of the goo on my clothes, which felt gross driving home, but it wasn't that bad. But he asked me before we went in, he was like, oh, do you still have your gallbladder? And I was like, yeah, that, you know, we'll see for how long. Like, that's kind of what we're looking at. And in the middle of my appointment, he just goes, yeah, I don't think you're gonna have this gallbladder for very much longer. So I was like, okay, so I've got gallstones. So I get a call later that day. The nurse is like, yeah, you definitely have gallstones. You're gonna get an appointment. The appointment was to talk about surgery. This is, I think, the biggest issue I have is it's really great when a doctor's office network has offices like all around a town so that people have access to it. Like, that's fantastic. But when the communication between them is not great, so you're talking to a different nurse in a different office every single time you go someplace, that's not great. So I've never had surgery before. I have had a couple of procedures done when I was in high school, getting diagnosed with IBS, where you had to do anesthesia, but I've never had like full-on surgery. So this woman calls me, this was on a Wednesday. She calls me and tells me I have an appointment for surgery on Friday. And I was like, surgery in 2 days? Like, what? Like, I need my boyfriend to take off work. So I was like kind of panicking. And she kind of like got off the phone with me before I could ask any questions. So I called back like 5 minutes later and spoke to someone else, and she was like, no, like, you have to have an appointment, talk to the doctor, schedule a surgery, like, it's all fine. So I was like, thank God. I go downtown 2 days later to a different clinic to talk to the doctor, who wasn't able to be there, so I had to deal with his nurse practitioner. Very nice woman, but she just likes to give me different information than the doctor, so that's been a little frustrating. So she's like, yeah, you have gallstones, you can do this surgery. But then she starts talking about how it could also be something else, because the fact that my pain was constant isn't super normal, and so I could do this other test that would definitely make sure it was my gallbladder, but like, I do have gallstones, so that's still, and she just like went on this whole thing that made me really confused. And this happened at the worst possible time. Like, I had a whole bunch of stuff coming up at work that I was able to like move, and you know, that was fine. You know, you figure it out. But I also, last weekend was my sister's wedding in California. So we were supposed to fly out there for that. So because I'm super emotional all the time about everything, I started to cry because I was like just very overwhelmed and stressed out. And this lady's so nice, but so loud. Like, I was like, everyone in this office can hear everything you're saying to me. And so they started to tell me that if I got the surgery soon enough, that maybe I could still go to California, or my other option was to try to just deal with the pain and do the surgery afterwards. So she gets the scheduling nurse in there. He's very nice. He basically kind of counteracted what she said, and was like, yeah, this is definitely your gallbladder, like that's the problem. My choices were for surgery the next week, or surgery, at this point, it's the beginning of April. My options were to have surgery on April 7th, or like April 20 something. So I was like, I'm gonna have to think about it, because neither of those options sound good. So originally I went home that day, and my plan was to try to just suck it up and deal with the pain and do the surgery afterwards, so we could still go to California, not have to worry about it. And things just got so much worse. That was Friday. I told my family about it, told them the plan. Saturday, things felt worse. I was like having kind of like a mental breakdown, because I was just like, I was so uncomfortable. I was in a lot of pain. I just felt like shit. And the idea of having to continue to feel like that for another month and travel, like that was getting like super overwhelming. And so my partner was at work, and I was on the kitchen floor, got myself out of a panic attack, and I was like, okay, I have to do this surgery next week. So he comes home, I tell him that, I called the doctor on Monday and was like, I need to do the surgery next Friday. So, okay, so I tell my family, and within a few days I was like, I still held out hope for a while that I was going to be able to go to the surgery, like go to the wedding after the surgery. But I just, the closer we got, I was just like, the more I talked to people about it, because I was telling people at work and, you know, trying to figure out how to deal with that, because I'm a teacher, and we're in the middle of the semester, and our school is small, so I don't have anybody, like I don't have a substitute. So I was trying to plan for like working from home, which did work out. It's another Friday now, so I've been working from home the last 2 weeks, which has been awesome, just while I'm recovering. But if that didn't work out, like I don't know what we would have done. So I'm planning all that, and just the more I talk to people, and the more like I spoke to some more nurses, and they were like, you know, you have to do X amount of movement right after surgery to like, you know, avoid blood clots and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna be in the middle of recovery and trying to like, I live in Tennessee, so that's like, with layovers and stuff, still like a lot of travel time. And so I finally ended up just right before the surgery, I just told my sister, I was like, this is not going to work out, which was really sad. But because we live in the age of technology, and everyone learned how to do Zoom weddings, we did a Zoom call, and so we were still able to like see their wedding and stuff, which was really awesome. I'm glad that we could still be a part of it in some capacity. But I was just like stressed out from all of that. But again, with like the miscommunication, and the fact that my doctor was really busy, I met the surgeon the day of my surgery. And for my follow-up appointment, he couldn't be there for that either. So I've only talked to the surgeon like this one time. He was very nice. He did an excellent job, like fantastic job with that. So no complaints about him. But the other thing with, if I wanted to get this surgery done here in town, I would have had to choose the end of April. So we had to go to the hospital it's like a little under an hour away, which is not the worst thing in the world, but it sucks. Like, you want to be able to be close to home when you're doing that. So it was like this little podunky hospital. I had to take off work the afternoon the day before so that we could drive down there to do my like intake appointment, which originally I was told was going to involve blood work and all this stuff, and that's why we had to drive all the way down there for that. We literally drove down there just so I could sign like 2 papers, and so a nurse could like talk to me about stuff and make my first payment. But nobody told me about any of this until the afternoon before the surgery. I still didn't know when the surgery was. I had no idea about the cost or when I would have to start paying or any of that. Like, I got like a little basic information packet that they give you that like tells you about the surgery and some of the aftercare stuff. But so on Thursday night at 3 o'clock, well, it's not night, whatever, but my appointment's at 3 o'clock. That's when they're telling me that I have to be at the hospital again the next morning at 6:30 a.m. for my surgery. I found out just over 12 hours before, like, when my surgery was going to be. So that, you know, minor inconvenience, whatever. So we do that. I was trying not to be too nervous. I just felt like shit and wanted to get it over with. So I went to work that whole week just because I was trying to like not eat up all my sick leave in case things didn't work out with working from home, which that was kind of a crazy mess too, but luckily it did, so that was fine. But get there, again, I've never had surgery, so I didn't know that they just tell you to be there at 6:30 and it's like a few hours before you actually get started. So we're in this little tiny waiting room and there's a few other people there, and there's this like dude and his dad that just like wanted to talk and like shoot the shit, and were saying some like pretty inappropriate things, and like they were friendly, but like we were also just like I don't want to talk to you, man. It was just so annoying. And so we waited there forever. Finally get things started. They took forever to do my IV. I've had that happen to me before. Like, they just can't find my veins, so like they stabbed me a couple times. It was really gross on this arm because she like put it really far in there, and she kept being like, tell me if it's too much, tell me it's too much, and it didn't hurt. It just felt disgusting to like feel a needle just like going way. Ugh, it was so gross. I'm glad it didn't work out on that side because I didn't want to have to feel that, but they ended up doing it over here, and that was kind of sore. I like it better when they do it in your hand because like when it's in your arm, I just feel like you can feel that more. So that was lame. They let my boyfriend come back, and so we didn't have to wait a terribly long time, but by then it had already been hours. And I was weirdly like, I know that obviously not waking up from anesthesia is a risk of surgery, super minor, but I wasn't scared of that. But I was scared that like something would go wrong and it would take longer, or I would like be in a coma and I would wake up and my boyfriend would be like, oh, actually a week has gone by. Like, for some reason that's what I was scared of. So I don't know why. That was just like my brain trying to sort through things. But I don't know, I just started to get more nervous the closer we got. And I had on me an allergy bracelet. They give you your regular hospital bracelet, and then they gave me an allergy bracelet because I told them that a long time ago I was prescribed hydrocodone for something, and I didn't like it because I took one pill and I was dizzy for like 3 days. And so I was like, I don't want to be given that. And they were like, okay, we're going to make a note of that in the system and put an allergy bracelet on you. I don't know if this is what happened, but I think the nurses took that to mean that I didn't want any medicine like that, because they didn't give me any. So I go in. I don't know if this has anything to do with the fact that I was nervous beforehand, but like, you go and they, you know, wheel you away, and you go into this little room where they give you like a hairnet thing and they do final stuff before they actually like put you to sleep and wheel you into the OR. And like, I was doing the thing where you like breathe through your nose and hold it for counts and go out through your mouth. Like, I started to get that kind of nervous right before, and so I was trying to just like keep myself calm. You know, they knock you out, that's instant. But the surgery went great. The first thing I asked when I woke up was like, did it go okay? They were like, yeah, it went fine. And it's very foggy to me on like the timeline of all of this, but I woke up and I can't believe I was even able to speak. My mouth was so dry that I couldn't breathe. Like, I was trying to take deep breaths and I realized I still had that mask thing on. And I'm not usually claustrophobic, but I guess just because I felt like I couldn't breathe, I remember I was like trying to take it off, and I heard somebody like saying like, oh, you know, let's take this off. And they were trying to be like, you know, like that's there to help you breathe. And I was like, I can't. And I was asking for water, and they were like, you know, that might make you throw up. But I was like, I cannot breathe because my mouth is so dry. So they gave me a little cup of water that I was taking really tiny sips of, which helped. But it felt like my entire like torso, from like my collarbone to my stomach, which I won't show you because like the cuts aren't like gross, but like they're still a little red, and some of them still have glue on them, which makes them look a little freaky. But I have, they're not very big either. The biggest ones are like maybe an inch, like 3/4 of an inch, but I have one right here, one like on my belly button, and then 2 over here. So I have 4 incisions that have just been glued shut in my stomach, and it felt like my entire chest was on fire. And so I started to feel like kind of panicky, and I was awake and aware enough to know that I needed to calm down. And like they were telling me like, oh, take deep breaths, like short breaths is gonna make it worse. I started to cry. They were like, crying's gonna make it worse. And I was like, I know, but like I'm in so much pain, I can't breathe. And I started to shake. Okay, it stopped recording on me. Hopefully we haven't missed too much. But yeah, so they're wheeling me back in. I'm in a crazy amount of pain. My boyfriend said he felt traumatized by how much pain I was in, and seeing me like that. So he just like, I must have looked like hell. He just like kind of jumped up and like had his arm around me and was just like trying to comfort me and stuff. And by this point I had realized that if I like clenched the bar on the side of the bed like as hard as I possibly could, that was helping with the shaking a little bit. But what I wanted to like share about this is not just like, oh, this is my painful surgery experience. I don't want to make anyone more scared of surgery, but like the nurses were all great at their jobs, but like I felt like they were making me feel like I was a wuss and that I was being a baby about it. Because at some point while they were rolling me around, one of them just goes, "Do you just have a low tolerance for pain?" And I was like, I was lucid enough and I was like, I didn't think so. And I was like, I have fibromyalgia, but that, like, you know, this is very different. And they kind of laughed and they were like, yeah, this is different. And in my head, I'm like, I have tattoos, but like, that's also different because you are, like, you know, what you're getting into a little bit. But I don't know. I just felt like I have never been in pain like that. And I felt like my reaction to it was valid and they were trying to like belittle me a little bit. And that sucks. Like, that just doesn't feel good to feel that way. So if you have experienced that in any sort of medical situation, I feel you and I'm sorry. But they offered me, this is why I think that they got confused about me wanting medicine, is because they were like, well, we can give you something, but it, you know, you might not like it since you didn't like that other stuff. And they said that twice, and I was just like, I don't care. And I remembered later at one point while they were like rolling me by that I just didn't know what to do, and I was trying not to cry, and I just went like, fuck, like at one point. And they just kind of laughed and like, I get it. You know, they're just like, you know, I'm just like loopy and being kind of crazy, but you know, they weren't laughing at me. I wasn't like upset at them for laughing, but yeah, I was just like, I don't care. Like, I'm not driving home. Like, give me whatever medicine will make this better. So they did give me something which I did not have a bad reaction to, and I didn't have to take it for very long. I took it that day and then one more the next morning. And then after that, I just kind of took like ibuprofen or whatever. But at one point I did realize, and if this ever happens to you, if you come out of surgery and you are shaking, if you let it come out through your teeth, the rest of your body will calm down. I sort of figured that out, that if I just let all the shivers and let my jaw go crazy, then I didn't shake in my chest. And I even made a joke at some point to my partner about like being a nutcracker or something like. So that kind of, once, I don't know if it was because of the medicine or just it happened to be at the same time, but the medicine, you know, after a few minutes kicked in, and that calmed me down, and eventually the shaking just kind of stopped. And so I was a little bit more lucid. I felt like crap and I just wanted to get out of there, but it is an outpatient procedure, so I guess that's why. But it felt like once that had stopped, that they sort of just like rushed us out of there. Like, we both said that later, that like at the time I just was like, I want to go home, I don't care. Like a week later, I asked my partner, I was like, did I have to sign something for us to leave? Or I was like, did you sign that? And he said that they originally were gonna like give it to him to sign me out, but that they thought I seemed lucid enough and that I did a good job signing it, which I signed so many papers that day, like beforehand, so it may just have got like lost in the sauce, but I kind of didn't really remember signing myself out, but that's okay. You know, they like, I got up, he got me dressed, they stuck me in a wheelchair and we went home, and luckily they gave us some barf bags since it was such a long drive, and I felt incredibly nauseous the whole drive home. And we went to pick up my medicine, and I did sort of like dry heave a bit in the car and a little bit once we got back home, but I never actually threw up, which was nice because that would have been so painful. I like laughing really hurt for a while. Luckily I did not really start sneezing until last week. I started to get some allergies. I'm feeling mostly better now, like things are really good. I'm perfectly comfortable sitting here. Things are still a little sore. Sneezing is still a little brutal sometimes, but that was really painful for a while last week. But yeah, luckily like things weren't that terrible recovery wise. I took lots of naps. It was very strange. They have to fill you with gas, and so they said that sometimes that gas like goes up into your shoulder afterwards, which I had that a little bit. There becomes like shoulder pain, but that wasn't terrible. But that actually kind of felt like fibromyalgia pain. So if you have ever had this specific surgery and you're curious what fibromyalgia feels like, the shoulder pain that comes afterwards, that's part of it. But my stomach was so swollen with all the air that I looked like I was about 4 months pregnant. And that stayed for about a week. And my skin just felt so tight. Like I felt like you could just like pop me like a balloon. It was so strange. But yeah, you just have to like keep the wounds clean. They glued everything shut so that I don't have to go back and get like stitches removed. Everything looks good. I didn't have issues with infection or anything. I have to eat a special diet. I can't lift stuff. That was the last sort of like, okay, this is so stupid, was I went for my follow-up appointment earlier this week, and the doctor had told me no lifting anything over 10 pounds for 10 weeks. So that's a very long time. You have to eat like a low-fat diet because your body has to learn how to process fats without your gallbladder, which I don't really eat a high-fat diet anyway, but like I do like to eat a lot of nuts and stuff that are considered healthy fats, but like that's still fat. So I've had to avoid just stuff like that, but that hasn't really been hard. I had to go back to the doctor, saw the same nurse practitioner that was still really loud and really nice but confusing, because I wanted to ask like, how long do I have to do the diet? How long do I have to, like when can I start working out but not lifting again? And she just told me, oh, after 2 weeks everything's up to you. And I was just kind of like, what? And she was like, yeah, you know, after the 2-week mark, you know, just listen to your body, you know, eat what your body can handle. If you're trying to lift something and you feel a little pull, that could be the sutures inside, and you don't want to rip the, which, like, so I was just like, that's a very different information. So I'm going to go by what the doctor said. You know, introduce fats back in slowly. I've done like quite a bit of internet research. Most things recommend, you know, a few weeks to a month of the low-fat diet. So I don't know. And even though it really sucked to miss my sister's wedding, there was just no way. Like, I had that super uncomfortable bloated stomach until like about the day it started to go down after about 5 or 6 days, but it was still swollen until like the day before the wedding. I was still sore enough that I couldn't sit up straight. Like, I had a dress that had laces in the back that I wore for like the Zoom call for the wedding, but I couldn't lace it up and I couldn't sit up straight for very long. I still do not have a lot of energy. I've left the house like twice since this whole thing. Like, I've started like trying to walk to go get the mail, but it just, I wasn't walking very far for those like first few days. Like, everything was just so sore and uncomfortable, and I just can't imagine trying to deal with that while traveling. So if you're a person that heals that fast that you could go back to work or go on a trip, you know, 6 days after a surgery, like, kudos to you. That's awesome. Like I said, I wanted to just share that with you so that if you've been through that kind of thing, like, it feels kind of lonely. I was really grateful that my partner, he took a few days off work, but they actually gave him like most of last week and both the weekends, like, paid like vacation, so that he could just kind of like stay home and take care of me, because you have to have, at least for the first handful of days, like, you have to have somebody do everything for you. So he was really great and cleaned the whole house and did all my laundry and like cooked food for me or got food for me or just whatever. But I just was really grateful that he was able to be home, and like, we are both very much talk through our feelings kind of people. So just anytime I felt like I needed to talk about it or bring it up, like, we were kind of just talking about like all the weird feelings I had, which has been really helpful. And I just kind of wanted to share that in case anybody has been through a similar experience. Like I said, I don't want to scare anyone off surgery. The surgery itself went great. The doctor was fantastic. And like I said, everybody was good at their jobs. It was just sort of the management of my aftercare that I didn't love, but that's not always everybody's strong suit. And as long as they're doing a good job on you, I feel like that's the most important thing. But sometimes you just don't respond to people's attitudes about things, and that's, you know, that's just the way it goes. But your feelings are valid. If you feel that way, and talking about it or hearing other people talking about it, I know sometimes can be helpful. So if this was helpful to you in some way, I'm glad. If you learned a new crochet stitch that I could share with you, I'm glad I could help you in that way. I know this was a little bit of a different one, but I will have other videos coming out soon that will be more along the sort of regular lines. If you liked this kind of video, let me know. I'm sure I have other like story time type of things that I could share. I appreciate you, whether you are new or old to this channel. If you want to stay around, feel free to subscribe. I post videos 2 to 3 times a month. I usually do crochet content at least once a month. Thanks again for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.